everybody, Steven here.
Hey guys, I'm Alan.
And welcome to another episode of Paint Talk with That One Painter. Today we're going to talk about wall paint versus enamel paint. What is enamel paint? What is wall paint? Why does it matter? We're also going to talk about oil base here.
A lot of times we'll come to a customer's house who's already bought paint for the project and just wants us to quote labor. One of the reasons it's nice to let us buy the paint is because
we know what we're doing.
Well, most of the time. No, we know what we're doing.
You never say, I know better than you. You want to sometimes, right, Alan?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. He's on.
Well, the big thing is making sure that we, help you understand why certain paints are good for certain areas.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
We've had a lot of our customers accidentally buy like nothing but wall paint. And they think they can do their whole home with just that paint, like including the trim and doors and cabinets, and just helping people understand. So basically, like Steven said, Emerald's great for the walls, no problem. It's a latex that's going to dry soft and be nice and smooth and velvety on the wall. But when it comes to trim doors, cabinets, you're going to want to use an enamel. When we say enamel, it basically just means that it dries smooth and it dries hard. So it's much more durable and much more resistant to like scuffing and nicks, dings, stuff like that. So really good for anything that's wood.
Right, exactly. It dries way harder, so it makes it a lot more durable. I'll be honest, there are a lot of painters who do just get a wall paint and put it in semi-gloss, and that little bit of gloss adds a little bit of durability, and they paint trim and doors with it. But that's not, I don't really think any real professional painter would ever recommend
new construction, lower quality, you see that a lot.
Yeah, you see that, but you're seeing it less. I mean, because there are some enamels like Solo that builders are starting to pick up on and using those more. But you still see it all the time in rentals. You see it a lot of times in DIY. People are just taking some semi-gloss wall paint and putting on trim and doors. But truthfully, you're just not going to get the durability that you're going to get with enamel, and enamels are generally more expensive. In this case, these are around the same price,
right?
But
that's because this is the top of the line.
This is the top of the line wall
exactly.
paint. Most of your regular wall paints are cheaper than your enamels,
right?
But the enamels are worth the extra few dollars, sometimes $10 or $15, depending on the product you're using. Because you're not even going to be using that many gallons. To paint your trim and doors in the house, you're talking about a few gallons, whereas you might be talking about 20 or 30 or 40 gallons to do your wall.
For the rest of the walls,
Right, so if you're just talking about 3 to 5 gallons for the trim, that extra $10 to $15 isn't that big of a deal to have a lot better durability, to be able to clean it, and for it to just look way better, way longer. So this is a water-based Pro Classic enamel. This is what, we use a decent amount of this product.
Oh, yeah.
We've kind of moved more towards the urethane products now, but we're still using the Pro Classic. We'll do another video on the urethane products and why we like them so much, but this is a classic waterborne enamel, which is really good paint. Then we've got the oil base. Oil base is what you're going to see in a lot of homes, older homes. They were painted with oil base. A lot of times we're still using oil base because you can't paint water base on top of oil base. So when we're going into an older home, it has all the oil base trim. A lot of times we'll pick up something like this and paint the trim with the oil base again. Because you can't take a water base paint and put it over the top of oil base. Water and oil don't mix. And specifically, water can't go on top of oil. Oil actually will stick to water base.
Yes. Though. You can go oil on water. You can't go water on oil.
And that actually brings to one of the questions that we get asked, because it kind of brings some confusion, is the rules don't apply to primers, though. So if you,
which is really confusing.
It's confusing because water-based primer can go on top of oil-based primer, and oil-based primer can go on top of water-based primer, and there's no issues whatsoever. And oil-based, the oil-based primers is actually what we use to basically cause that bridge that needs to happen sometimes when the customer doesn't want to have oil-based in their home anymore. So if we've got like this oil-based trim throughout the house, we'll put oil-based primer on it, and then so that we get that bond, and then we put water-based paint, so then from then on every time they repaint they can be using water and never have to use oil again. But yes, that is a confusing thing that we get asked a lot. The rules don't apply when it comes to primer, but when the paint, they're really important rules to follow, because we have seen time and time again where somebody put water base over oil base, and it's this nightmare project.
We're doing one this week. Customer tried to paint trim doors herself. and bought a water-based enamel and painted most of the home, not all of it, and started realizing that within a few days it was already peeling. And so now we're coming in there and we're going to have to strip that off and redo it for her, but this time we'll be using an oil on top of an oil. The other option you can do is obviously primer coat it and then use water based enamel. But it is a really important thing to know. I've seen that mistake made even by professional companies. Just because a lot of times professionals, they didn't check, they didn't test it.
They thought it was water-based when it was really oil.
They made a guess, a judgment
And the
call.
way you can do that is use some acetone and wipe it, and if it comes off, it's water-based. If it doesn't come off, it's oil.
Right.
That's an easy way to test it. So one of the things that we have found is that the urethane paints will stick to oil if you sand them, and we'll talk about that in another video. So there's coming out with more and more options to where we don't have to use oil-based paint, or sometimes now even we may not even have to use the oil-based primer. However, the prep for that is like you have to be meticulous, because if you're not, you just have the same issues that you do when you put water over oil. It is one of the most important things to understand, and we try to make sure every one of our painters and all of our project managers and estimators understand, is there's one rule you don't break. You never put water on top of oil, because literally it's days and days of work sometimes to fix that problem. Because to strip all those doors and all that trim that you painted with the wrong paint and then repaint it again is a massive mistake. And so I'm trying to get away from oil-based as much as possible, and when customers will allow us to use the urethane paint and do that sanding and do that process, that's great, but there are a lot of times when we're still going to go ahead, just because of price, go ahead and just repaint it with oil because it's less prep.
Absolutely.
And it saves the customer. It is probably the cheapest option when you have oil-based trim.
But overall, we are trying to get more and more away from oil-based enamels. One, the VOCs are obviously, anything oil-based is going to have slightly higher VOCs, just is what it is.
Quite a bit higher.
So, quite a bit higher, honestly. So we try to use water-based or the urethanes like Steven's alluded to, but another big reason isn't just the VOCs, it's anything oil-based is gonna patina over time. And right now, all of these modern whites, these real bright whites that are really in style, especially on cabinets, trim and doors, like really bright, crisp whites, they're the most susceptible to having the patina, the yellowing effect. In fact, I go into homes all the time where the customer's like, why would the homeowner pick this weird almondy or yellow color on the trim and doors? And I'm like, I promise you, it wasn't painted that color. It's just this trim's now, 10, 15 years old, and it's yellowed. And to be frank, there's even different quality oil enamels. There's some really cheap oil enamels
that'll
out there.
yellow in 3 years.
Oh yeah, in about 3 years they'll look like a complete different color than what you painted.
Pro Classics top of the end, this probably takes about 10 years to oil. To yellow, maybe 7 or 8. You start to see some.
Depends on how much sunlight you're getting too.
Exactly. That makes a big difference. And then the other disadvantage of oil, and probably the one the customers complain about the most, is the smell. The smell is, even if you've been painting for a long time, and you're working with this product all day, you probably end the day with a headache unless you're wearing a respirator.
You should
Because if you're just painting all day, brushing away on this stuff without a mask or without a respirator, you're going to have a headache. And a lot of customers, they walk in, and after about 10, 15 minutes in the house, they're saying, I feel sick, or my head hurts, or it bothers their nose, whatever it might be. Pretty quickly they realize that oil-based is not fun. And then I think the entire industry is trying to get away from oil-based. But because of the repainting issue and the fact that so many projects have oil-based on them, the industry hasn't been able to completely get away with oil-based. But I think if you talk to any paint manufacturer, they're saying, well, we're constantly trying to figure out ways to get away from oil altogether. And so we try to use as little oil as possible, but there are plenty of times where we do have to use it still.
There's times you still have to.
And there are great options like Pro Classic here, waterborne, and alternatives, but you just have to make sure to do the right prep or whatever if you're going to use these. And then there's the urethane as well. So hopefully that answers y'all's questions about the difference between wall paint and trim paint, and what an enamel actually is. So yeah, thanks for listening. Hope you'll stick around for another video.
Thanks, guys.